You're very welcome back to Fridays Off the Ball. Brian O'Driscoll is with us in studio. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
Very well?
Really good, yeah.
Great?
Yeah, excellent.
You look great.
Thank you.
What is it?
Feel
is it
fresh.
the yoga?
I don't know. Thursday night's the new Saturday night for me. I don't know. It's becoming a bit of a habit coming in here, feeling a little under the
People
weather.
have been talking.
But it was well worth it. You'll be glad to hear.
Fess up, go on. You don't have to give us all the details. A Leinster Old Boys reunion?
It was, yeah. Dinner, we kind of try and meet up once a year. So it was the old guard, going back to the Matt Williams days. Mike Ruddock was even there for a while. Victor Costello's, Reggie Corrigan's, Emmett Byrne, amongst others. So it was a good crew.
Do you walk in with your Heineken Cup medals and go...
We don't. We're pleasant to one another. But it's a great laugh. It's always good to catch up with all of them. I suppose, like everyone else, when you get to a certain age and kids come along, you know, the time you have to spend with friends, and particularly old colleagues. You know, you don't barely hang out with your very, very close friends. So old colleagues, you know, you very rarely have that opportunity to meet up. So yeah, it was regaling of stories of yonder years. It was good fun.
Do you think in 15 years' time, when you're the older member of the crew and you're meeting up with the younger lads, that the stories will be as good?
I don't know if I'll have that meeting up crew.
No?
You know, no. Like it's almost, it feels as though this is my crew. You know, the guys that I left behind a few years ago, yeah, I'm friendly with a couple of them, but I wouldn't envisage an en masse dinner like that. Maybe if you're celebrating a 10-year anniversary of a Heineken Cup or something. But
I guess that's like any company where when you're 21, 22, 23, they're the years you're going out, whereas by the time you're winning Heineken Cups, you're heading into your 30s.
But as well, because I started young at 20, you know, they were the core group of friends that I played for a decade with, or close to a decade. You know, obviously Dennis Hickey and Shane Horgan I'd be very good friends with. So, you know, I played for a considerable amount of time with those guys, and they're the ones that you have the best, I suppose, the deepest friendship with. So yeah, you know, Shane's living in London now, so yeah, you don't get that much of an opportunity to hang out. So we'd a lot of fun last night.
You're here, that's the main thing. You're in body and some sort of mind.
I'll try and
do you talk rugby?
Yeah, there's a small bit of talk.
Is there an in-depth tactical analysis?
No, it's peripheral stuff, but everything and anything. Yeah, from, you know, just funny things that have happened, and obviously more pressing issues. What's going on with the trial up north? You know, what people have been up to. Just a catch up. So yeah. Pretty conventional, but a lot of laughs as well, and lots of red wine.
It seems so. It's good to have you here. There's a lot to get through. Tomorrow night, we may well be Six Nations champions, which it's not that unlikely.
It's not that unlikely, no. Like, obviously, we have to keep our house in order and take care of the Scottish game, and if England don't at least match what our result is, irrespective if it's a straight win or a bonus point win, if they don't match it, the title is ours. England will find it tough against France, there's no doubt. I don't think England are in, you know, anything like the form that got them that, you know, 24 out of 25 wins, certainly the first year of Eddie Jones.
Has Jones flogged them? Like, is that part of the issue? He says he wants them to be 20% fitter. Has he flogged them to the extent that he's almost sacrificing part of this Six Nations to ultimately in 18 months' time have him the fittest side at the World Cup?
Yeah, but you know,
bringing the Georgians in for scrum training mid Six Nations.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, you have to remember too that, you know, those English players play a lot of rugby. They play a lot of rugby with their clubs as well. There's not the same relationship, even though they do have, I don't know, the EYS or whatever they call their the panel where clubs are paid for usage of players, yeah, within camp, so they're not used during Six Nations. But even still, you have to think that yes, they are a fit side, but less is more, particularly when you get to the latter part of the season as well. When you get beyond Christmas, the last thing you need to be doing is really pushing guys, because there's so many miles on the clock already. They've built their base of fitness via pre-season and that massive number of games they played in the first 6 months, and now it's about tapering off. And that's why you get to, certainly when you get to the Aprils and Mays of the year, that training isn't really as much of a necessity as it is the early part of the year, because you've done so much of it and you've got the miles in the bank. Then it's just about recovery and trying to make sure that you save it for the game. So if he is flogging them, and maybe it's part of his grand plan for Japan 2019, but I just feel as though they look a small bit vulnerable at the moment.
Possibility almost that, having come from Japan and such a very different setup with the amount of rugby the player is playing, that almost he's on a learning curve as to what sort of state players should be in at this time of the year? Yeah,
I think it's always difficult as well for a national coach's perspective, because you get players for such a small period of time. You get them maybe a week or two before Six Nations, a couple of camps, sporadically, over the course of the calendar year, the rugby season. So you don't have that much of an opportunity to impose yourself. So when he is getting them in, he's trying to get value for money, or there's a sense of him wanting to earn his substantial salary that it's understood that he's on. It's kind of hard to know, and I would say that they just look a little bit tired now, I think, England, and I think they do look a small bit, not soft, but they have a vulnerability that I haven't seen for a couple of years.
I want to talk about Keith Earls, because he's having a sensational tournament. He's also been put in front of the media a lot. He's done a lot of talking, said some interesting things. 2009, first time you played with him, what were your impressions back then? Yeah,
very exciting, very elusive runner. He was raw back then, obviously. I think he's a little bit more refined now. Considerably more refined. Obviously has a wealth of experience, but he appears to still have all that same athleticism that he had back then as a 20 or 21 year old. Was
he the heir apparent?
He's a great athlete. Yeah. I don't know, because I think for years he struggled to find what his best position was. He played a bit of full back, on the wing, then he was moved into centre at times. So I think obviously now he's settled in the wing. I think he realises that's his best position, and Joe Schmidt realises that. And
ultimately, is he a better winger because he's had that experience in the centre at full back?
Probably. I think you probably get a better sense if you play in multiple positions and understand the workings of a 13 in relation to what goes on, particularly from a defensive perspective. As a winger, I think you definitely have more of an appreciation for what a 13 might be thinking in advance of you getting the ball, or in advance of making a defensive decision. And likewise, working on that pendulum with the back three, where there's a need when the ball is over the other side of the pitch to work in the backfield with the full back, and then to be able to work in unison with your other winger as well. So I think he's got a great sense for how the winger needs to play and how he needs to get involved as well. He's not a winger that stays out there and waits for the ball to come to him. He goes hunting it if the day isn't for him, or if the ball has been scarce, he'll go after it.
Do you see the Joe Schmidt influence on him?
Yeah, but I think Keith is playing his own game too. I think he probably, I don't think people have before this year, or the last, particularly this year, I've had a full appreciation for Keith Earls. At training, he scares people. He would absolutely rip the team apart, and a lot of the time when we were training, he mightn't have always been in the side, but when he's playing in the opposition and you're doing a defensive set, I can't tell you how many times he would have absolutely cut us apart.
And is that tight space stuff?
Yeah, and then it never properly presented itself, on match day. You see him picking up lots of scores, and he runs in, he finishes. I always say he finishes. He's like a striker. He finishes off tries, but he still has to be there.
Yeah.
He still has to put them away. But I think this year in particular, his form has been excellent, and he's really showcasing what we've been seeing, what certainly I was watching for at training for years.
He really does seem to be in a good place in his life, being happy to sit in front of the media, talk very well, and talk honestly, saying, yeah, these are the biggest weeks of my life coming up with the form I'm in, with the place I have in my team. Talking as well about working with Keith Barry.
Really interesting.
Sort of came out of nowhere, saying, but again, trying to get that 1% between diet, between psychology, having the visualization, just anything that works. And whatever it is, he didn't go massively into detail what he's doing with Keith Barry. But is that quite often the case?
I think we get to it. But I think when you get to a point, particularly when you get into your 30s, you have a good sense of who you are and what you are and what makes you tick, and you understand your body better than anyone else, better than any strength and conditioning coach, or you understand what motivates you or what really works for you. So it's then fine-tuning that and trying to get those 1 or 2 percenters, and you particularly when you mature a little bit as well, and maybe the the partying that you might have done as a 20-year-old, he's family man now, has a couple of kids, and you see him reflecting an awful lot on what's going on in the world, and I think it grounds him, and I think he's spoken openly about how much he's enjoying his rugby now, but he's able to put it all in perspective and ultimately just seeing it as a game. And yes, it is his career, but he's having fun, and you can see that in his performances.
Did you have that moment of realisation where actually this isn't the be all and end all?
Yeah, I think when kids come along, it's a big part of it. I think when I didn't have a eureka moment, but I think it happened when I got sick of being an also-ran, of finishing second, or being perennial runners-up, to then just get my act together. And that, I think all the stars aligned, probably about 2008, where Leinster got their act together. We obviously won the Slam in 2009, and then the realisation that when you fix all those components and you get some success, maybe let's keep hunting for those extra 1 or 2 percenters. And I think you always you never stop doing that, and you don't always know what it is the magic formula. I used to go and get some reflexology, and I didn't know. Do you know what it was? Particularly when I had my daughter, that even that was just a 20-minute sleep. So we go to a reflexologist, and I couldn't stay awake for it. So it's just having a cat nap, because you don't get an opportunity to cat nap when you got a toddler at home anymore. So that afternoon snooze that you used to live by, that goes when kids come along. So even those small things, going, extra stretching sessions on your day off, just understanding the nutrition, hydration, all those small elements. If you can just improve on everything by 3, 4, 5% year on year, you're giving yourself a better chance of more success, of being a better version of yourself.
I don't know how Keith Earls came to work with Keith Barry, but generally when you're looking for that 1, 2, 3% extra, is that a personal thing you do? You're going out seeking, you're doing a bit of research, or are actually people within Leinster, within the IRFU, are they constantly opening these avenues?
It's probably a combination of the two. I think, I don't know with Keith whether he went and inquired about Keith Barry or how it came about, but it's an interesting one. It's something I haven't heard before.
Did you do a lot of visualisation?
Not really. It wasn't really for me. Maybe I didn't have the imagination for it. But I didn't really like playing the game over in my head too much. I was very much live in the moment stuff. In advance of the game, I never thought about it too hard. Some guys are at pains to playing over different moments or different scenarios. That wasn't for me. It was probably a little bit more instinctive, because I didn't have the not the time, but I didn't have the appreciation for trying to work that in that manner.
Yeah, Wayne Rooney speaks very well about visualisation, and he often talks about the overhead kick against Manchester City, how people thought it was this spur of the moment thing, and he's like, no, I've thought about this. I've thought about these moments, these big moments in games, at night, in bed, and also that relates to when the cross was coming in. I've actually thought about where it's going to go and what I'm going to do 10 seconds in advance. But again, everyone's different. I
think as well. You'd still have the Roy the Rovers moments in bed, like everyone else, where you dream of lifting trophies and having a big impact in important games. But with regard to the week of games, where Joe Schmidt talks a lot about being in the mind gym, and that's obviously about analysis, about understanding your role. But if that's second nature, having done all that work, it wasn't for me to overly think things through. For me, that was probably a little bit too mechanical. I just wanted to be a little bit more instinctive.
All right, good stuff. Brian is going to stay with us. 53106 is the text number. You're welcome back to Fridays Off the Ball. Brian O'Driscoll is still alongside me in studio. Our Six Nations coverage on Off the Ball is with thanks to Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. We all belong to the team of us. So if you were playing outside Finn Russell, how would you approach it? You're welcome back to Fridays Off the Ball. Brian O'Driscoll is still alongside me in studio. Our Six Nations coverage on Off the Ball is with thanks to Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. We all belong to the team of us. So if you were playing outside Finn Russell, how would you approach it?
Listen, he's definitely an instinctive player. So you've got to read body language, and you have to understand that whatever has been called might be overruled with him playing heads-up rugby. I suppose there's an excitement to that.
Is there an excitement for teammates to that?
Yeah, but there's also a difficulty sometimes in being on that same page. But the thing that's exciting about Finn Russell is he looks as though, even after the first couple of games where he wasn't great, it didn't look as though it was weighing too heavily on him. He was still pretty relaxed. That England performance, the quality of passes, the range of passes, I think was pretty special. He was willing to throw the ball out there, risking intercept time and time again, because he backed his skill set. And he's, I think he'd be quite an exciting player. I suppose I remember Jeremy Staunton years ago playing Ireland under-21s with him, and he had this unbelievable looseness to him as well. And it was difficult at times being in the centre outside him, because you really didn't know what he was going to do. But when he did take it on and he was strong, you knew that there was going to be offloads to be had. So then you have to start picking your lines of running and anticipate where he's going to be or where the ball is going to be left.
Is it unusual that Gregor Townsend isn't trying to smash that out of him?
No. I think you can't. He's picking him because of the player that he is. You can't pigeonhole players into a particular type of 10, particularly when you look at the type of player that Gregor was himself. He was very much a heads up sort of outside half, perhaps not renowned to have the world's greatest kicking game. It was reasonable enough, but you look back to that Lions tour in 1997, it was about his ability to run that back line. And it's just game management. You can be loose, but it's also understanding you need to have a good game management at the same time. What I like about Finn Russell is it doesn't really matter where he is on the pitch. It seems as though it's all the same. He doesn't mind throwing a pass behind his own line, versus where the try line's a couple of yards away. It's the same attitude. He's still going about it in the same manner, and I think he looks pretty unflappable, and it's a great quality to have, considering the pressure that he was under after the first couple of games. To come out and respond the way he did with the performance against England, I think shows what sort of player he is. Everyone was writing him off, going, oh God, Racing have gone and signed a dud, and then he went and had a top class performance. Is
that actually the real worry for tomorrow? That look at the way he was able to respond to disappointing performances. What's he going to be like with all the confidence of putting together one of Scotland's best performances in a decade? Yeah,
I think that's the exciting thing. I think from maybe from a pundit's point of view, you want Scotland to play well, because I think, yes, we want Ireland to win and have an opportunity to win the Grand Slam, but you want them to be tested as well. And you have to remember, it was only a year ago that they were on the receiving end of a loss to Scotland, so they'll be remembering that, and they'll realise they can't let Scotland off to the start that they did last time out in Murrayfield. But you expect quality players to back up big performance like he did 2 weeks ago in the Aviva tomorrow, and they look bullish. I think Scotland, even though they've got a terrible away record, six victories in the Six Nations Championship away from home, 4 of them against Italy, is pretty abysmal, but yet they're quietly confident, and I hope they play well, because it's going to mean that we need to deliver an even bigger performance ourselves.
It is yet another new centre partnership for Ireland, the 25th since Joe Schmidt took the role, and the constant changing, is that part of the reason for the lack of creativity, for the lack of attacking quality at times from Ireland?
Yeah, obviously there's no continuity there. You in a perfect world, you have stability. You've got that stability at halfback, but for multiple reasons, largely injury, there's been a lot of change in there. I think if Joe Schmidt is picking from a full deck, I think he's probably thinking Henshaw and Ringrose as his centre pairing, but it's such an attritional game now.
Has Aki not done enough?
I listen, it's very close, there's no doubt it's close, but who do you maybe it's going to be a case of horses for courses as well. And he looked at the confrontational style that they played against Wales. They really decided to take them on. I think there was a bit of a lack of creativity there, but there was a lot of go forward from Farrell and Aki. Aki's gotten over the try line a couple of times in the last 2 games. He's been pretty good. Few unforced errors the last couple of games as well. But he's been very good defensively, very solid. So it's a lovely position to be in, to have 4 centres of that calibre. Farrell, Aki, Henshaw and Ringrose. But I just think when you are getting all 4 of them available at training, I do think that Ringrose offers something that none of the others do.
You didn't have too many occasions where Gordon Darcy wasn't alongside you, but from Joe Schmidt's point of view, getting to that sort of level of understanding, and maybe the way the modern game has gone, you never get that sort of run of 2 centres again. But would he prefer to be in a position heading into a World Cup where actually, rather than having competition and constant changing, he has 2, he sticks with them?
It's just that I suppose if you're going to get through a full World Cup with centres fit, you would want a run of games with those in advance. It's also for the outside backs, having an understanding of passing technique from a Henshaw versus a Ringrose versus an Aki. Everyone has a slightly different style. Some players will want their wingers. Some centres will want their wingers to hold a little bit more depth and throw it out in front of them. Obviously the quality of pass of one versus the other. There's always going to be slightly more impressive passers. Although all 4 of them are pretty proficient. So it is just a case of getting timing and getting comfortable continuity and understanding how a player works, and how your lines of running will be favoured off particular individuals.
I guess ultimately as well, Henshaw and Ringrose should get that at Leinster as well over the next 18 months, where they get that little bit of time together. Are Scotland just going to be looking at Ireland and Ireland's defensive problems and what Andy Farrell has been working on probably over the last couple of weeks and think, let's just test them early on. Let's just see how much work they have actually been able to do. Let's see how much they have been able to fix.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what Ireland's line speed is going to be like tomorrow from early on. It's been in the last 20 minutes, in particular of the last 2 games, that they've conceded their tries and those wide plays. And the first try against Wales, the Shingler try, was a poor defensive read that's easily fixed. The second one, was good play from Scott Williams, and Fergus McFadden can't hit in and then not stop the ball, and he'll know that as well. So they're 2 individual errors rather than system errors.
Okay.
So they're easier fixed, than if there's major system malfunction. I think it's just about the continuity of players defending together, trying to make sure that they get the speed on the width, make sure they don't have a number of front rowers or tight 5 defending in the wider spaces.
Well, you touched on that before Wales. Were they better at that?
Yeah, I think they were a bit better, but the 2 tries that they got a little bit narrow on that a Shingler try, and that's why Stockdale tried to solve the problem when he could have waited for Aki to push him out, and maybe they could have worked on a bit more of a push. He tried to slam the gate closed, but I think I want to see if Ireland are able to ramp it up in the outside channels like England are capable of doing, where Joseph and Theo and their wingers seem to really be pressing hard and discouraging the opposition from throwing the pass, and that's half the battle. I'd like to see a little bit more aggressive line speed in the wider channels.
What does that come down to? Is that confidence within the system?
It is, yeah.
Understanding your role?
Yeah, but it's it's getting the personnel capable of doing that. Ringrose is a very good defender. He's a very good tackler, but also a very good defender, where he's able to problem solve on his own. He can shoot occasionally. He very rarely makes an error when he decides to shoot. It's his timing on that is very, very good. So a lot of the time it's just about presenting a picture. So playing up really hard, but then with the ability to be able to play off soft as well. So if I'm an outside half and I look out to throw a skip pass and I see some green blurred image in my eye line, there's a good chance I'm going to tuck or maybe go with a shorter pass or maybe go back inside or have a go myself. And that's what England are doing. It's almost scare tactics, and that's why Scotland had the success against them, because Finn Russell was still willing to throw those passes and risk the occasional intercept.
Right. We were talking on last night's show about the dynamic within the camp over the last couple of weeks, because we spent so much time talking about the Monday morning review and Joe's relationship with the players and how harsh he can be at times with the players, whereas we don't really talk about Joe's relationship with his own coaches. And he did come out over the last couple of weeks and say, listen, Andy Farrell is world class. We don't know what's been said behind closed doors, and the sort of analysis goes on within the coaching. Do you ever get any sort of insight into that?
Listen, Joe likes to, he oversees everything, but he has a hand in everything as well. As much as Andy Farrell's defensive coach, Joe has a big part to play in how that system is going to operate. He's not someone that fully delegates and goes, right, that's your component.
Yeah. So he's not turning around after the game going, I can't believe we're not doing this.
Yeah, exactly. So he's very heavily involved in it, in formalising how exactly we're going to defend, how we're going to attack, what the backline's going to do. Maybe to a degree he'll leave Richie Murphy to the kicking with the boys, maybe Greg Feek with the scrummaging, but certainly with the forwards with Simon Easterby and he takes ownership of the backs himself, and with Andy Farrell he is very heavily involved. So I just don't think he's someone that's capable of allowing others to do it. I think he feels as though maybe he can do the role the best, so that's why he plugs himself into the system. Listen, it's hard to argue with them with the success he's had over the last 6 or 7 years. Their
conversations when they're working through all this, are they very public in front of the team, with the team?
No, I think they're largely, because you have to give credibility to your coaching staff. You have to back them up. So I think they're behind closed doors. No, you can't undermine them. So as much as and Andy Farrell will, yes, he'll still have his own angle on things, but he won't be saying anything new in team meetings that Joe Schmidt hasn't already heard in a coaches meeting in advance of that.
Are we spending too much time talking about backlines and Sexton, Russell, when actually maybe the Irish pack just go out and destroy the Scottish pack?
I thought, do you know what? And that's ultimately what it'll come down to. I read in the Irish Times, I think Gavin Hastings was talking about how the Irish pack, or the Leinster pack, dismantled Glasgow in the European Cup, and how that's his concern. I wonder, with Dev Toner in there, they're obviously a small bit worried about the Scottish line out. So is that why his selection is there, where at 6'10", if you throw it to a certain spot, if the throw is accurate, no one can get up to that, to where he can reach. So I think there's probably something in there. Obviously also maybe they feel that Henderson doesn't have 60 in him. He might he's there from an impact perspective.
And with England coming in a week's time,
you would anticipate that. Again, a bit like the centre pairing, if he's everyone to choose from, that I think that second row pairing now looks like Ryan and Henderson in advance of the World Cup in 18 months.
We had a few texts in after you were in last weekend asking about the breakdown and about the difference between the two referees, between Nigel Owens and between Wayne Barnes, and a lot of people are just wondering how that can happen, how there can be such a difference between two referees at international level. Is it the good teams, the well-prepared teams, that actually come to terms with that and use it to their advantage?
Yeah, when you analyse the opposition, you also analyse the referee. So today, at some point, probably before the captain's run, the lads would have gone into a team meeting, and they would have done 10-15 minutes on the referee, on Wayne Barnes, on 4 or 5 things that he'd be particularly hot on. There's all likelihood that he'll blow a penalty in the first 30 seconds, 45 seconds of someone not rolling away, because that's what he's going to want. He wants to lay down the law, and he will call ruck an awful lot sooner than Nigel Owens. I thought, John Barkley had a field day, and he played the referee brilliantly. He's a canny player too, is John Barkley.
So he's smart enough to
he's a very, very smart player. So he'll realise too what he can and can't get away with Wayne Barnes, and you'd anticipate that they probably won't go after as much ball as they did against England as a result of who's refereeing the game.
We are pretty much done for time. We're going to have to listen to some of the great insights that the lads managed to produce over in the Pig and Whistle in New York last night. It's a quality hour of radio coming your way next. What's your prediction then? I
think we'll win. I think it'll be tough, but I wouldn't rule out the possibility of 4 tries, just because you get a sense that both teams will be capable and probably will score tries. So I fancy us. It's hard to know by what. I'm not sure what the spread is, but I fancy us kind of probably by maybe 10 points. And I actually hope England go and win, because I want to go over to Twickenham and
everything
pick
on
up
the line.
Yeah, because I think, not that it adds more motivation, but there's extra spice for us when there's more at stake, and when England can upset us, and it'll be all the sweeter when we do a job on them in Twickenham.
Alright, good stuff. Go home, get some sleep.
I will do exactly
that. The people
that.
watching ITV won't put up with this.
No, that's why I did Thursday night, not Friday night.
Great stuff as always, Brian. Our Six Nations coverage on Off the Ball is with thanks to Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. We all belong to the team of us. Plenty more rugby to come in the next hour.